When I was stuck in Mexico, I made a video, and within the video, I was talking about the potential for Aduro. So in this video, I just want to walk you through the numbers so that I don't just throw out things just out of thin air. I want to quantify it for you so you can see where I'm coming from. So what you see in front of you is the from Aduro's investor presentation of how they're going to make money, and they can make money in two ways: licensing model and owned and operated units, right? So the licensing model is when somebody builds the recycling plant on their own dime, and then they own it, and then they process it, and then Aduro gets a royalty payment for the usage of the technology. And the licensing model is the best kind of model for a company because Aduro doesn't have to spend capex to build the plant. Somebody else is building it. And it's the highest margin revenue. So that revenue is very high quality revenue. It's going to get valued in the stock market very high, right? So that's the kind of revenue that Aduro is going to go for, at least like initially. Maybe in the future they might have their own owned and operated plants, but at the beginning, and probably more than just in the beginning, especially with the major players, they're going to go with the licensing model. And as you know, Shell accepted Aduro into the Game Changer program. So this is not some kind of decision that was made just, hey, let's accept them. No, that there was a very rigorous process to accept them, and it took like a year and a half to be accepted. So Shell did its due diligence. Like, we as investors, we can do due diligence, but when somebody like Shell, a major plastic company, comes in and says, yes, this technology is good, we're gonna partner with them, that says a lot. But anyway, so I want to direct you to this comment, which is on co.ca, and I'll just read this first. Here's a quick math to understand the size of this opportunity within the plastic vertical and why Shell selected Aduro. So number one, Shell intends to recycle 1 million tons per year of waste plastic. So if you just Google Shell, you can see Shell plastic recycling. Shell's global ambition is to recycle 1 million tons of plastic waste annually by 2025, right? So this is where it is, okay? And so let's go back to this comment. Number two, using Aduro's quick slide deck at 76,500 tons per year on a licensing model, he is talking about this page, 76, you see, tons annually, right? So it's 225 tons per day. That equates to 76,500 tons annually. On a licensing model, Aduro stands to make $13 million in licensing fees. So that's where the 13 million comes from. 13 million. Okay, see, for Aduro, 13.9 million for the licensing, right? Because the capex for this would be 200 million, and Shell would be paying that 200 million. The revenue for that would be, for Shell, would be about 70 million. Then there would be operating expenses in this case, Shell obviously wouldn't have any feed acquisition because they produce their own plastic, right? But if it was operated like here by somebody else, then that somebody else would have to pay for the feedstock, right? So, but the Aduro's portion for the licensing would be that almost 14 million. And as you see here, CapEx, well, it's not required on the licensing model because Shell would be paying for it. And then the payback years obviously is not applicable because they're not paying for it, right? So that's where the numbers are from. So $13 million in licensing fees and $69 million in additional revenue for Shell, right? So that's that number, 69 million, okay? Thus, 1 million tons per year. That 1 million, which is what they want to recycle, that 1 million. Thus 1 million a year, that would result in 182 million per year for Aduro and 900 million for Shell. But we don't really care for the Shell because we're shareholders of Aduro. So we want to, care for that 182 million. And I'll show you how we get to this. Given the licensing model, it is easy to argue for a 75% EBITDA margin or 132 million EBITDA. Yeah, because royalty revenues, they barely have any expenses, right? So yeah, you would have this kind of EBITDA all related to one client. This places no value on other verticals like the oil vertical or other verticals. So again, let me show you how they come to this number, or this person comes to this number. So if we have a 76,500 and we know that Shell wants to do 1 million, right? So I take 1 million divided by 76,500, that's 13 times. So then I can take this revenue of 13,931,568 times 13. That's how I get to 182 million. And then the EBITDA for something like this would be 0.75. So that's how you get to 135 million. So now 135 million, right? And so what kind of multiple would you put on something like this just from one client? Well, if you put, it's a growing company, right? It's a growing company. So let's just say, 25 times that. Then we're looking at, $3.4 billion, right? $3.4 billion. Now, that's just one client, right? If you type it in, how much plastic is produced per year, it's 380 million tons. So Shell just produces 1 million out of 380 million. So, and 80% of plastic feedstock, nobody else can solve. So if you start running numbers and you're like, let's just say that Aduro can get clients where they could potentially do, 10% of that, right? 10% or you can use whatever number you want, but like 40, right? So then you would take 136 million, times 40, right? So we got the valuation of like, what did I get? I got like 3.4 billion, right? So let's just call it 3 billion. And you say if they capture like 10% of that, and you can use whatever number you want. You can say 1%, 5%, 20%, because it could be 20, 30%, 50%. Why not, right? If they're the only ones that can do the plastic feed that no one else can do. So if I take that 3 billion and say, 40 million tons per year, we're talking 120 billion market cap. You see what I mean? So like you can play with those numbers and then the result is just crazy insane. So the reason why I think the moment the market realizes what these opportunities mean, the stock is going to adjust positively just based on hype and people calculating it, because it's like, I just said 120 billion market cap, and at 40 billion, that's 1,000 times your money, right? That's like 3,000 times your money, right? Like it's like insane. You put $1,000 into you put $1,000 into something like this times $3,000. That's $3 million on $1,000. You see what I mean? It's completely mispriced. And so the opportunity is absolutely freaking insane here when you calculate these numbers. And then when it comes to the margin of safety, what the IP, if you listen to the interview that I did with the CEO, he was saying that you could sell the IP like at a fire sale, minimum 30 million. And if you do some studies, 200 million. But now with Shell on board, that probably IP doubled. So you have a lot of margin of safety at these prices. And then the upside is just like, I don't even want to crunch the numbers because it's so crazy. So that's why I think that when the story gets told and people start crunching the numbers and realizing what they mean, it could really get explosive. But remember, I have to tell you that the stocks can go down and Aduro's stock can go down anytime. So be careful.